Good morning, church. Devotion today is Genesis chapter 36 and 37. And chapter 36 is kind of like an intermission. It goes through the descendants of Esau that would become the nation of Edom. And then chapter 37 kind of shifts from focusing in on Jacob to his sons. And actually, we'll see that in the first verse here. It says, Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan, and these are the generations of Jacob. And so for the original readers of this, the Israelites, these first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses after the Exodus, and they're a nation when Israel was a nation, and so they're learning their history here, and they've seen the covenant go from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, and now it's going to go to his kids. And so here's the next part of the story. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. So we're starting to set up this next generation. Notice that there's lots of details about Joseph. He's named, uses his actual name, whereas the brothers, they're not even Jacob's sons, they're the sons of Jacob's wives. And we already see this tension. Joseph is favored by his father. And there's this tension between him and his brothers. He's giving bad reports, probably true, as we'll see in the rest of the story, but still. And his brothers are this anger and hatred is starting to build up in their hearts towards their brother Joseph. So then Joseph has a couple dreams, and the first dream he has is about some sheaves of wheat bowing down to his brothers is bowing down to him, and his brothers right away pick up on the suggested meaning here and go, what, you think you're going to rule over us at some point? And then the text says that, verse 8, so they hated him even more, right? And then he dreamed another dream, and this time the sun and moon and stars were bowing down to him, so it was including his father and mother, and even his dad goes, really Joseph, you think we're going to bow down to you as well? But here in verse 11 kind of sums up the different reactions. His brothers were jealous. It says earlier on there that they hated him even more. But his father kept these sayings in mind. And so you have a picture where Joseph is favored by his father, but also favored by God, given these dreams. And in this culture, I mean, dreams were very significant. And so his father's kind of stored that away, like, I wonder if God has something planned for Joseph, having given him these dreams. But his brothers are just focused on the jealousy and the hatred. As I was reading that, I just thought for us, it reminded me of some of Jesus' teachings where Jesus said, you have heard it said, don't commit murder. But I say to you, don't even have hatred, anger in your heart. You've already committed murder in your heart if you have that. And we've seen this before. We've seen this jealousy turn into hatred, turn into murder with Cain and Abel already. And here we're starting to see it again. And that's what Jesus was talking about. We see that when we allow that to build up in our hearts. And Jesus warned against favoritism. And here we have some of the root of this is on Jacob for favoring Joseph, and jealousy, the way jealousy can lead to these things. So then the story goes on. What's going to happen here? The tension is all set up. Well, one day, verse 13, Israel said to Joseph, come, I will send you to your brothers at Shechem, and go see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and then bring me back word. So Joseph sets out, and they're not where they were supposed to be, but he eventually finds them. And verse 18 says, they saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. their own brother. And they said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come on, come now, let us kill him and throw him in one of these pits." And so here we have this story, Joseph seemingly chosen by God, and yet his brothers are seem like they're going to win out against the God story and kill him. So they do. Reuben stands up for Joseph and says, "Let's not kill him." The firstborn, the oldest. Any oldest kids? When something happened, who did the parents go to ask what happened? Yeah, the oldest kid. Yeah, I was a firstborn. So I think Reuben's kind of going like, hold on a second, I'm going to have to explain this to Dad. He's going to ask me. So he's like, let's not kill him. Let's not have any blood on our hands. Let's just throw him in a well here. And then Reuben was secretly going to go pull him out later. But with Joseph down the bottom of the well, I don't know where Reuben went. But some slave traders come along. And so Judah says to his brothers, "Hey, what does it profit us if we kill him? Let's sell him to these Ishmaelites, these slave traders." And so they sell him for the price of a slave. And the Ishmaelites take him off to Egypt. And it says, Joseph to Egypt. Now this would have triggered something in the original Israelites' minds, because they just came out of Egypt as a nation. And so now all of a sudden, oh, Joseph, Egypt. Now Reuben comes back and he's like, "Hey, where'd Joseph go?" And they're like, "Oh, we sold him." And so they have to come up with a plan. Reuben's like, "Well, what are we going to tell Dad?" So they come up with this plan, and they take Joseph's coat and they tear it up a little bit and kill a lamb and put some blood on it, so that it looks like Joseph got mauled by a wild animal or something. And they go and they give it to their dad and kind of go, "Do you recognize this? Know whose this might be? We found it," kind of thing. And of course, Jacob recognizes it's Joseph's and figures he's been killed by a wild animal and mourns for him. And the chapter ends with, meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. And so the story ends with Joseph really as good as dead to his family. I mean, a slave, the life of a slave, there's no getting away from that. Jacob thinks he's dead. His brothers figure they'll never see him again. And we as the readers are kind of still waiting to find out how this covenant promise is going to come about. He's one step closer being in Egypt, but he's a slave. So we'll pick that story up in a couple days, but things to apply for us today. The warning of the danger of jealousy and anger, and just how that can root itself in our hearts. And so, I don't know, it's good for us to examine ourselves and think, is there anybody that we don't want them to succeed? That's a good way to just like his brothers didn't like how Joseph was treated by their father. Or maybe we wish people would fail, someone we wish we'd fail. That's usually a sign of jealousy or anger in our hearts. Or maybe it's something that's happened and you have a issue with somebody, and Jesus makes it so clear we need to forgive. Right? He puts it right in the prayer he taught us, that we would forgive others as God has forgiven us. And then there's an encouragement here. There's an encouragement that even when we can't see how God's going to work out his plan, that we can trust in him. And so here's Joseph, who's been given these dreams and favored by God, and yet he's out of nowhere for him. Put yourself in his shoes. He's sold as a slave by his brothers, and now he's a slave in Egypt. How is God going to work out and fulfill these plans about his brothers bowing down to him? He has no idea, but we'll see in the coming chapters his trust in God and his faithfulness to just be obedient to God. So with that, the Lord bless you and keep you. And when I think of keep you, I think of so many Psalms about God being our fortress and our rock, our foundation, our strong tower. That's the idea that comes to mind when I think of God keeping us. May God bless you and keep you. and make his face shine upon you. And today would you know his peace. God bless.